Hey Goblin, you've been really practicing those war drums. I'll bring the generic Goblin noise!
This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. I'm also sponsored by Face to Face Games, Canada's premier Magic the Gathering store. Using the promo code MTGMudsta will get you 5% off site-wide, with eligible orders getting free shipping Canada-wide. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the Generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. Today's game has Kevin, Mika, and Maximus back at it, with Kevin playing his Ratadrabik of Urbog deck, keeping 2 Swamps, Malakir Rebirth, Rankle Master of Pranks, Buried Alive, Defiler of Flesh, and Sir Conrad the Grim. I've decided to play Vilis, keeping Deserted Temple, Swamp, Necropotence, Forsworn Paladin, Burnished Heart, Thought Vessel, and an Ivory Tower. Maximus wants to anger the table, so he's bringing his Marisi Breaker of the Coil deck, keeping a Boros Garrison, Forest, Path to Exile, Scoot Swarm, Eldrazi Monument, Avenger Zendikar, and March of the Multitudes. Mika sleeved up the slightly changed Inquisitor Greyfax, keeping Company Commander, Sunken Hollow, Plains, Cybernetica Datasmith, Space Marine Scout, Exterminatus, and Evolving Wilds. Kevin wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays a Malakir Rebirth as a Malakir Mire, which comes in tapped and passes. I've got a Swamp for turn, and play out a Forsaken Paladin. Max just plays a Forest. Mika draws, playing Evolving Wilds. Kevin's got a Swamp for turn, and passes. I play Deserted Temple, and then cast a Thought Vessel. Moving to combat, I swing my Paladin at Kevin for 1. Max draws, and plays an Exotic Orchard. Mika draws, playing a Plains, and passing. Kevin has a Plains for turn, and casts Buried Alive, putting to his graveyard a Crypt Breaker, Dogged Detective, and a Death Baron, passing after that. I draw and play a Swamp, casting Burnished Heart. I then swing my Forsaken Paladin at Mika again, passing to Max. Maximus draws and casts Path to Exile on my Burnished Heart to quote-unquote help me ramp. He then plays a Boros Garrison, bouncing the Exotic Orchard back to hand. Mika plays a Sunken Hollow, and then casts a Cybernetica Datasmith to try and protect himself from all those runaway robots that are on the field right now. Kevin draws and plays a Swamp. He plays a Ratadrabik, passing to me after that. I've got a Terrain Generator for turn, and pay 2 for a Jet Medallion. I pass once that resolves. Maximus draws and plays a Scoot Swarm. He then replays the Exotic Orchard, making an Insect token, and passes after that. Mika draws and plays a Space Marine Scout, going to find a Godless Shrine to put into play tapped. After that, he plays a Plains for turn, and passes to Kevin. Kevin draws and plays a Defiler of Flesh. Going to combat, he swings his commander at me, dealing 3, and after that, passes. During his end step, I activate my Paladin to lose a life and make a treasure, moving to my turn after that. I draw and play Necropotence. I then play Lake of the Dead, sacrificing a Swamp, and then pay 5 life into my Necropotence. After that, I pee the tea as the kids say, and put the cards to hand at the end step, and pass. Maximus draws and plays a Sword of the Animist. He then equips it onto the Insect token, and plays a Temple of the False God. He gets to make another token, and moving to combat, he swings the Suited Up Insect at me, and gets to find a land from the On Attack trigger from the sword, and makes another Insect token. I then take the hit, and Max passes. Mika draws and immediately goes to combat, swinging at me for 2 with a Space Marine Scout, which I just take. He then plays Inquisitor Greyfax, passing after that. Kevin draws and plays Shadric's Silverquill. I respond by making another treasure, and Kevin then goes to combat. He picks the mode to put a +1/+1 counter onto his team, and gives Mika an Inkling with Shadric's trigger. He then swings the Defiler and Ratadrabik at me, and I just take the hit from both. He passes after that. I skip my draw step, and then use a treasure to help play a Cryptcast. I then cast a Grey Merchant of Asphodel, getting to drain my opponents for 7 and gain 21. I then play an Expedition map, passing, and during my end step, Mika gives Max a robot with a Datasmith and draws a card. Max draws and plays an Avenger of Zendikar, making 5 plant tokens as it enters. He then plays a Valakut Stoneforge as his land for turn, making a Scoot Swarm copy and putting a +1/+1 counter onto his plant tokens. Going to combat, he swings the robot and the equipped insect at me, and I block the insect with my Grey Merchant, but still take 4. Max does get to get a land from the sword trigger, which makes 2 more Scoot Swarms, and buffs his plants even further. He passes after that. Mika draws and miracles Triumph of St. Catherine off the top. He then goes to combat and swings at me with his 3/1 Inkling, thanks to Inquisitor Greyfax. He passes after that. Kevin plays a Bontu's Monument, and then plays out Rankle, paying the 2 life off the Delver, the flesh, but gains 1 back as he drains us from the Monument. Kevin gives Ratadrabik the buff from the Defiler, and then goes to combat. He gives Mika another Inkling, and pumps his team again with Shadric's, swinging everything but the Defiler at me, and I take all of it. Kevin then chooses all modes with Rankle, so each discard a card, draw a card and lose 1 life, and then sacrifice a creature. I sacrifice my Grey Merchant, while Max sacrifices an insect token, Mika sacrifices a Space Marine Scout, and Kevin sacrifices Rankle, making a token copy with Ratadrabik that's also a zombie. After that, Kevin passes, and on his end step, I crack my Expedition map to find an Urborg. I skip my draw from Necropotence and play an Urborg for turn. I then play Chainer Dementia Master, and then activate him to reanimate Rankle, and then activate him again to reanimate my Grey Merchant of Asphodel. This time around, everyone loses 11, and I gain 33. I then move to combat. Mika taps my Rankle with the Inquisitor Greyfax ability and makes a clue token, and I sadly have no good attacks. I then pay 3 life into Necropotence and pass, and during my end step, Mika gives Max another robot token and draws himself a card, while I put those cards to hand. Max draws and casts an Emeria Angel. He then plays a Plains, pumping his plant tokens, and making more Scoot Swarms, and creating a bird token. He then plays an Eldrazi Monument, and goes to combat, swinging the whole team at me. With his massive board, I can't really survive through this, and end up dying, and Max passes after that. Mika draws and plays a Talisman of Hierarchy. Moving to combat, he swings Triumph of St. Catherine at Max, who blocks with an indestructible bird token. Mika does gain some life back though, and passes after that. Kevin draws and plays a Swamp. He then casts Despark and targets the Eldrazi Monument, and exiles it, and once that's done, casts Sir Conrad. He gets to give Shadric's the buff from the Defiler before moving to combat. Kevin once more repeats his Shadric's trigger, buffing his team and giving Mika an Inkling. He then swings his Commander, Shadric's, and Rankle at Max, and Max blocks Shadric's the Angel and his bird token, and blocks Ratadrabik with a Scoot Swarm. Before damage though, Max casts March of the Multitudes, and taps his blocking team plus some other stuff to make some tokens. But Mika responds by countering it with a Deny the Witch, dealing 6 to Max. Max then takes 3 from combat, and Kevin's opponents also take 3 off Sir Conrad seeing things die. Rankle also triggers, and Kevin chooses the mode to have people discard a card, and then draw a card and lose 1 life from Rankle. He passes after that. Max draws and plays Marisi, and then equips the sword onto the Scoot Swarm. Moving to combat, he swings his insect, robots, and 4 scoot swarms at Kevin, and the plants, Avenger Zendikar, and 1 scoot swarm at Mika. The Sword of the Animus triggers from attacking, and he goes to find a basic, pumping his plants and making a ton more scoot swarms to block with. Kevin blocks a robot with Sir Conrad, the insect with Rankle, and his Defiler and Ratadrabik block some scoot swarms. Mika blocks the Avenger with his Cybernetica Datasmith, and blocks the insects with his Triumph of St. Catherine and his Inkling tokens. Damage then happens, and Mika actually nets 1 life from combat damage, but then Sir Conrad starts triggering. A total of 9 creatures die, and Max, having forgotten about Sir Conrad being on the field, unfortunately dies. With that, we move to Mika. Mika draws and swings both of his creatures at Kevin. Kevin blocks with Ratabriks and the Defiler, and Mika casts And They Shall Know No Fear, naming Human, to give his team Indestructible and pump them. This has Mika gaining 7, and the Defiler dies, dealing 1 back to Mika from Sir Conrad seeing it. He passes after that. Kevin draws and plays Ransack the Lab, binning 2 creatures off of it, and Mika takes 2 from Sir Conrad. Kevin then plays Animate Dead, bringing back the real Sir Conrad. This has Mika taking another one off the Conrad token seeing the real coming from the graveyard into play, and Kevin then moves to combat. Mika taps Shadrix with Greyfax, and then Kevin resolves the Shadrix trigger, making Mika lose a life and draw a card, and puts a +1/+1 counter onto his entire team. He swings everything he can at Mika, which has Mika blocking the Sir Conrad token with the Triumph, gaining 6 back, but then still dropping to 6 once the rest connect. Kevin then activates Sir Conrad, but unfortunately they don't flip into any creatures. And Kevin then moves to resolve his Rankle trigger, making everyone discard a card and sacrifice a creature. Mika has to discard a creature, which has Sir Conrad triggering, and he loses another 1, and then sacrifices Inquisitor Greyfax. Kevin sacrifices Sir Conrad, the real one, making another token copy of the Ratabriks, and Mika loses 2 more life total, and this has Mika losing 2. After that, Kevin passes, and during his end step, Mika cycles Reconnaissance Mission to draw a card. Mika draws and swings with his Triumph. Kevin eats it with Ratabriks, and Mika gains 5. Mika then plays a Martial Coup where X is 5, destroying all creatures and making 5 soldier tokens. Mika loses a total of 3 though, and Kevin gains a Shadrix copy, and Mika then passes. Kevin draws and goes to combat, choosing to pump Shadrix and make Mika lose 1 and draw a card. With the 3 damage and double strike coming at him in the air, Mika knows when he's beat and scoops it up. Game review time. I was 100% the right person to take out, although unfortunately for Maximus, it kind of revealed his hand. And once I was dead, they couldn't let him live. I also think this was probably the most effective use of Scoot Swarm that I've ever seen in an EDH game, and I'm a little bit sad that there wasn't a Mutate involved with it, because of how wonky Mutate works with that card. I think for the most part Mika said that he only tweaked the mana base, which he did to basically help him play his cards easier. Just goes to show how powerful the Warhammer 40,000k decks are, and how well built they are, and I still love playing my precons against other precons. Kevin did a great job showcasing Ratabriks and how silly the tokens that it makes can really be. It felt like he was a spell or 2 away from having several copies of Sir Conrad on the field, which would have meant that trading in combat was about to become very difficult. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.